That Marvel Phase 4 trailer had me feeling, things. It's been so long since we've been able to sit in a theater to watch a Marvel movie. Now that Phase 4 is finally back on track, this would be a great time to look back on Marvel's greatest run so far, Phase 3, and how it changed the MCU forever. And then changed it forever again. And then like 5 more times after. Let's just get into the video. The strategy for Phase 1 and 2 was to start off with a grounded Iron Man movie and then slowly build up to the shared universe stuff. For Phase 3, they went with the opposite approach. Captain America Civil War picked up every plot point that Age of Ultron left behind. Immediately after the Sokovia disaster with Ultron, the Avengers find themselves under heavy scrutiny from both the governments of the world and one evil mastermind bent on revenge. The Sokovia Accords and Zemo succeed at ripping the Avengers apart. Team Captain America and Team Iron Man were formed, and the battle they had left a lasting impression on the MCU for years to come. The simmering rivalry between Cap and Tony finally came to a head too, splintering their friendship and leaving Steve as a fugitive for most of Phase 3. While Civil War tore the Avengers down, it also did a great job of laying the foundation for the future. It introduced 2 new heroes who would become centerpieces for the entire MCU. Tom Holland came in as the perfect younger take on Peter Parker / Spider-Man. The movie also literally dropped Black Panther into the movie, creating one of their most iconic movie characters thanks to a powerful performance by Chadwick Boseman. I'd say that both of these investments paid off about a dozen times over.
I'll make it rain.
The world of the Avengers was mostly pretty grounded in the beginning. Even Thor's magic was explained away by Jane Foster as a science we haven't discovered yet. Well, Doctor Strange threw that explanation right out the window and fully committed the MCU to a world of magic and mystery.
Breaking the laws of nature, I know.
Stephen Strange definitely represents the audience's journey into mystery, as it's proven to him that the grounded world he thinks he lives in is just the surface. By the end of the movie, after possibly thousands of years fighting against Dormammu, Strange became not only a sorcerer, but the Sorcerer Supreme.
This is how things are now.
This would get developed more as Phase 3 continued, but it still feels like the best of Doctor Strange has yet to come. The first Guardians of the Galaxy movie brought together a group of intergalactic rogues and made them into a superhero team. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 took this team and made them into a family. Hey Dom, can you,
Family.
Thank you. Peter Quill loses not only 1, but 2 fathers. Rocket accepts that the other Guardians won't abandon him like everyone else, and Gamora, god darn it, I did it again. And Gamora makes peace with her sister. By the end of Volume 2, all of the Guardians have put their pasts behind them and look forward to a long future together. Or not. While the sequel was a heartwarming and heartbreaking movie about family, what we didn't understand was that they were laying the groundwork for some emotional punches no one was ready for. Gamora's relationship with Peter Quill and Nebula really set us up for future pain. Now, Civil War did a great job setting Peter up for future adventures, but that wouldn't mean anything if those adventures weren't worth it. Luckily for us, this new version of Spider-Man took a slow and steady approach. Tom Holland's version was a young hero in Iron Man's shadow who had to prove that he's worthy. They did this by stripping away a lot of the over-the-top superhero elements most Spidey movies have focused on. Instead, they portrayed him as the ultimate friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Scenes of Peter solving small crimes in Queens or trying to ditch a party to follow a supervillain lead capture that small-scale hero work early Spider-Man comics reveled in. Just like the comics, this smaller scale makes the epic superhero moments seem grander, culminating in him refusing an offer to join the Avengers. Hopefully, we'll continue to see Peter's movies scale upward over the years of Spider-Man MCU movies to come. Because I just need one set in Manhattan, guys. Just one like superhero battle in Manhattan featuring Spider-Man. Just give that to me. That is if Spider-Man can defeat his real archenemy, contract negotiations between Sony and Marvel. Well, what can you even say about Black Panther that hasn't been said 1,000 times over? This movie became a full-blown sensation when it premiered. T'Challa proved himself to be one of Marvel's most noble heroes against one of Marvel's better villains, Eric Killmonger. More importantly though, the movie did an amazing job of setting up the world of Wakanda as Marvel's most interesting locale to date. Every scene in the nation is filled with vibrant art design, culture, and political intrigue. As much as audiences love this place, I'm pretty sure its motto will prove to be accurate. I think we will see Wakanda forever. Ah, crud. He does it better. Hey, T'Challa.
Wakanda forever!
Captain America Civil War featured a huge fracture in the Avengers, but did it with two of its most powerful members MIA. That means there was a hanging question over the film. Where are Thor and Hulk? Luckily, Taika Waititi and Chris Hemsworth were all too happy to answer that question. Thor Ragnarok established that Thor had been traveling around the Nine Realms trying to make sense of his vision from Age of Ultron. When his sister Hela destroyed his hammer and pushed him out of the Bifrost, he conveniently ended up on the same planet where Hulk had been living as a gladiator since he left Earth. Both Thor and Hulk's characters are shifted dramatically as the two joke around with each other while taking moments of shared introspection. The characters that continue in the MCU from here very much feel like an extension of the Ragnarok versions instead of the ones that came before. So the first Thor began with Odin's heir prepared to take his turn as the rightful King of Asgard, so it's appropriate that the third Thor ends with him finally living up to his legacy. King Thor began his reign by destroying Asgard to save its people. Then he led on a pilgrimage across the stars to find a new home. Little did we know that Thor was really setting a course straight for disaster. The third Avengers movie doesn't waste any time introducing itself or its main character. It picks up right where Ragnarok left off with King Thor and the Asgardians making their way across the galaxy. Only they were stopped by the villain who had been teased since the very first Avengers, the Mad Titan himself. Give it up, guys, for Thanos! He immediately establishes his threat by effortlessly taking down both Thor and Hulk before ending Loki's life. From there, he takes on the Guardians, Team Cap, and Team Iron Man as he slowly gains the Infinity Stones. While the other two Avengers movies followed our heroes as they took on supervillains, this one followed a supervillain as he took on the Avengers. The ending then further broke this formula by doing the impossible, letting the villain win.
What did you do? What did you do?
Now, detractors of the Marvel Cinematic Universe often claim that all of their movies are formulaic to comedic and lack any real stakes. Stakes. The ending of Infinity War shattered all of that by featuring a shocking ending where all of the new heroes faded into dust while the old heroes were left to mourn them in failure. It then ended with Thanos relaxing on his farm, enjoying his victory. This was by far the biggest twist the MCU ever pulled off. Until they pulled off another one a year later. So it was kind of a weird choice to follow up Avengers Infinity War with Ant-Man and the Wasp. How do you follow up the biggest comic book movie cliffhanger of all time with a small-scale action romp? Surprisingly, this small-scale action romp ended up being the secret ingredient that gave the Avengers a chance for victory. The Ant-Man sequel elaborated on the quantum realm and its strange relation to time. They then doubled down on the MCU cliffhangers by having Scott Lang trapped in the quantum realm with no one left alive to save him. No one could have guessed that Ant-Man's second adventure would be one of the most integral parts of Phase 3. While the entire Marvel Universe hung in the air, the MCU decided to revisit its past to answer some glaring questions from the first Iron Man movie. Nick Fury famously asked Tony Stark, "You think you're the only superhero in the world?" This became a very strange question as the MCU rolled on because Tony Stark was the only superhero in the world at that time, as far as we knew. Then Marvel showed us Fury's origin story and his first superhero encounter with Captain Marvel.
Oh, congratulations to you, Star Force lady.
The young Agent Fury goes from being a normal government operative to coming face to face with an alien versus alien showdown happening on planet Earth. It seems like this might be the most important movie for Phase 4 as the Skrulls and the younger generation of heroes who were inspired by Carol Danvers are about to take center stage. Avengers Infinity War left a huge cliffhanger for an entire year. That put a lot of pressure on Avengers Endgame to live up to the last movie's high bar. Not only did Endgame reach that bar, it very well may have leapt over it. After using time travel to celebrate the MCU's 10-year history while they collected the Infinity Stones, it set the stage for the final showdown between Thanos and the Avengers. This led to the most cheer-worthy moments of the entire franchise. From Cap lifting Mjolnir, to the On Your Left sequence, to Iron Man's final victory, Endgame presented several iconic Marvel moments that the future of the franchise will be competing against for the next 10 years. Avengers Endgame definitely represented the end of an era. The losses of Black Widow, Iron Man, and Captain America serve as the definitive ending to the Infinity Saga. Luckily, the movie also sets up the next generation to take the torch. Steve Rogers passes on his shield to Sam Wilson, establishing that the MCU will move on to a new status quo. It might be a long time before we see another Avengers movie on the scale of Infinity War or Endgame, but the MCU's story is far from over. Strangely enough, a movie named Endgame is not the actual end of Marvel Phase 3. It was followed by an epilogue with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Far From Home addresses many of the opinions Marvel fans had at the time. How would the world react to the snap and the fallen Avengers? How would the other heroes respond to global threats now that the response team was no more? It showed Spider-Man coming to grips with the fact that Iron Man wouldn't be his safety net anymore. As the new hero Quentin Beck shows up to stop an interdimensional threat, Peter doubts whether or not the friendly neighborhood hero has what it takes to be the entire planet's defender. When going gets tough and it's revealed that Beck is actually the threat, Peter rises to the occasion and he takes Mysterio down. Unfortunately, it also ended with another big cliffhanger that sees Peter's identity revealed to the world. Gosh, the MCU just loves to torture us, huh? If Far From Home and shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision are representative of Marvel's future, I'd say things are looking pretty bright for the MCU. Now, as great as Phase 3 was, there's really no pressure on Phase 4 at this point. I'm basically prepared to hand Black Widow the Best Picture Oscar the second I hear the Marvel theme song in a cinema again. Just guys, get me in there.
You're repeating yourself, you know that? You're repeating yourself.
You're repeating yourself. You're repeating yourself.
Dude,
You know, no.
come
You
on.
never